We have a few apologies, which maybe Margaret could read out for us. If I turn this microphone on, and we are live.
Thank you. Apologies from Mike Lambert, Hilary Horsley, Margaret Honeysett, Jeff Lloyd.
What was it? It's live for this end.
Apologies from Mike Lambert, Hilary Horsley, Margaret Honeysett, Jeff Lloyd and Nigel Warren so far.
Is that a Sandy apology? Sandy apology. Of the Brownings. Great, thank you. In which case, let us open this evening's proceedings in prayer. Let us pray. Loving God, whose love we live to serve, so that all the world may see the wonder of it, take hold of us again in the coming year. Give us the mind of Christ, so that we may rediscover your presence in the community around us and recognize your Spirit at work in every act of human kindness, in every plea for justice, in every call to service, and in every challenge to our complacency. Take hold of us again. Fill us with love for each other and our neighbours, and by our faithfulness, let your justice, joy, and peace extend more and more, so that our faithfulness may increase to your glory and our delight, now and forevermore. Amen. So our vestry meeting, minutes have been circulated of last year's vestry meeting. Would anyone like to make any corrections of those minutes? They're on the simple side. Great. So can I take those as passed? No one wants to change it. So we come to the election of church wardens. I am delighted and relieved Angie and Caroline are both standing again. They are unopposed. Angie was proposed by Jamie Dalrymple Hamilton and seconded by John Gerard. Caroline Thackeray proposed by Cathy Hurst, seconded by Mike Gwilliam. And just before we vote on that, it is likely that one of them will not be standing next year. So get thinking about, would you like to stand next year for church warden? Do have conversations with them or me about how all that works. But for this year, Angie and Caroline are standing. So all those in favour of appointing Angela and Caroline as church warden? I think that might be unanimous. Any abstentions? Any against? Yes, unanimous. Can we give them a round of applause? Angie can't be here tonight, but Caroline is. A huge thank you for another year's work and plenty of it. Right, so that draws our vestry meeting to a close. Our annual parochial church meeting. Again, minutes have been circulated. Would anyone like to make any corrections to the minutes from last year's meeting? I will take those as a correct account of the meeting. Any matters arising from those minutes, not otherwise appearing on the agenda, or wishing to be raised as any other business? Great. So we come to election of parochial church council members. We needed at least one nomination, I'm very proud to say we have 4. And we are allowed to have all 4 of them as PCC members. I think 5 is the maximum we're allowed to take, does that sound right? Something like that. So that's really good news and shows something of the health of our congregation, which is fabulous. So I will read you the nominations. Nick Horsley, proposed by Mandy Judson, seconded by Tony Lambert. Martin Beaufort, proposed by Howard Gilbert, seconded by David Goldsmith. David Bonney, proposed by Jackie Natt, seconded by Angie Ayling. And Jamie Dalrymple Hamilton, proposed by John Judson and seconded by David Thackeray. Ooh. We've not prepared for that, have we? Bear with me one moment. So, we have 4 new PCC members proposed. I propose that we vote on them en masse, as we can take them all on PCC, unless anyone rather we didn't. Good. So we have 4 people proposed: Nick Horsley, Martin Beaufort, David Bonney, Jamie Dalrymple Hamilton. All those in favour, raise your hand. Any abstentions? Any people against? We are unanimous. Excellent. And we look forward to commissioning our new PCC in due course for another season. Thank you. We now come to... Oh, sorry. Would those 4 people stand up for me so we see who you are? Yeah.
Jamie's not here, he's in Scotland.
Jamie's in Scotland. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves, who you are, very briefly? I'll give you a microphone.
I'm Nick Horsley. Been coming to Minchinhampton for something over a year now, living on the outskirts in Beeches Park. I've served on PCCs in 2 or 3 other churches, and that's me.
Thank you.
I'm David Bonney. I've been coming to the church for about a year now. We moved to the area in the 1st of February, so we're relative newcomers. I've never served on a PCC, so I'm brand new.
Well done.
I'm Martin Beaufort. I'm ever so slightly interested in history, as you probably know, and done the odd few hours in the graveyard. I've never been on a PCC before, but I consider it an honour. I'm really happy to get going.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Grand. So now we're going to call on our Treasurer to deliver the annual reports and financial statements. Already circulated. John has a microphone number 3. Right. And I'll plug in the presentation. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Margaret, very much.
Well, good evening, everybody. In case any of you don't know, I'm John Judson. I have been here before doing this presentation. I think this is the 23rd time I've actually done an annual presentation. And we're doing... Sorry? No. I might go away. I used to do it for other people, like Ken Cottle. I did one for Tony Waiton. I did one for Roger Rowland. And I've done 20 now for myself. Here we go. Right. These are the accounts of Minchinhampton and with box PCC. Make sure you know they include nothing else. They do not include Amberley before you think they might. And they do not include Avening or Cherrington. Perhaps one day they will, but this point in time they do not. And they include everything in Minchinhampton. So that's the church as you know it, it's the Tower Fund, it's the Flower Guild, it's everything, all added together. There's a major adding together job that one has to do at this time of year. Right. Now, to understand these accounts properly, everybody has to understand what the reserves are. Now, I know I keep spouting on about this year after year after year, and I shall continue to do so because I want to try to make sure everyone understands them. Start at the bottom, restricted reserves. Restricted reserves are where someone gives some money or some gifts for a particular purpose. We are not allowed to change the purpose for which those gifts are given. They may be given for the organ, they may be given for the stained glass window, they may be given for the Flower Guild, they may be given for anything you like, but they are restricted. That's number one. General and designated are basically both general, but the PCC has the right to designate part of its general funds as for a particular purpose. So our PCC designates money for the Fabric Fund every year. So it takes part of the money out of the general fund and designates it for the Fabric Fund. Now the advantage of that is we know we got some money for making repairs to various things. You can, however, undesignate monies and put it back into general reserve. So the two could perhaps be considered together, but we treat them separately. And Church of England accounting rules say so. So I have to do that. Right, the next one. Can we try the next one? Right, so general income. This is money coming into the church which the PCC can spend exactly as they want to. You know, we can go to the pub, we can do whatever. No, we might not do that, but we can do all sorts of things. So this is general income. The top one is meant to say planned giving and gift aid and legacy. Gone up a little bit. Box had a legacy of £1,000 in its general fund last year, which is very good. Minch, as usual, had absolutely nothing. But amazingly to me, the planned giving actually increased very slightly last year. As I've been spouting on for the last 3 or 4 years, planned giving is bound to drop soon because the number of people who are giving to planned giving are reducing. And the people who are dying, dare I say the word, are the people who are the most generous ones. So the people who are remaining in the scheme are obviously giving very generously year on year. And there's also obviously some new recruits putting money in, which is great. So our general planned giving in 2023 rose slightly from the level in 2022. Can you all hear me, by the way? Please stop and ask questions as you... Can you not hear, sir? I don't know what to do about it, I'm afraid.
I think just speak a little slower might help.
Right, I'll try to go a little slower. Is that all right? Yes, what I was trying to say was some very generous givers have died in the last few years. And the people who are remaining here are obviously increasing their giving year on year. And there's some recruits coming in as well, which is great. So our income, our planned giving actually increased year on year. Our collections and donations also went up, which is great. Quite a lot of the increase in donations was money for hospitality. Is it too loud? Is it echoing too much or something? It's echoing. Can we reduce the echo in any way?
Only at great expense.
No. I haven't got that. Oh, I can.
Try.
Is this on? That's better. Right, now I've got to remember talking to it. The main increase in collections and donations actually is hospitality income. Hospitality is getting much more organised than it used to be, thanks to Jackie, and that's what a lot of that increase is. Lillian South is a trust set up in Box for a lady surprisingly called Lillian South who left money to pay annual expenses of the church. Originally to provide accommodation for a rector or a cure it or whatever. But if there wasn't one to fund, it was to be put towards general administration. So the £4,000 just gets added into general expenses. Funeral and wedding fees, these are net. Net means this is after paying money due to the diocese, to the person taking the funeral, to the verger, to the organist, whoever they happen to be. So that's the net figure. The actual gross funerals fee, mostly funerals, is about in the low 30,000s. Rent and concerts. This is rent from concerts here, which is great. And is one of the significant increases last year. That's the biggest increase of all last year. It's about 40% year on year. And interest. I don't normally talk about interest in these presentations, but suddenly interest has become rather more interesting as we get a lot more of it all of a sudden. So last year we had £1,212. So our general income rose to 146,000 last year from 135 the previous year, which is pretty good, I think, actually. Then we go on to general fund expenses, hopefully. Howard? Here we are, good. Charitable giving, a very small amount comes out of general income every year, and that goes to the Friends of Gloucester Cathedral. Ken Cottle, when he was treasurer, set that up, and I'm afraid it's still there, rightly or wrongly. Parish share. Last year we paid 47,537, the same number as in 2022. And I'll go on and talk about that again in a few minutes in a bit more detail, if that's all right. Property costs, a very significant rise, £9,000. Those of you with good memories may remember I talked about the fact that last year we weren't able to complete the electrical work which was highlighted in the quinquennial during 2022. In fact, we were about £6,800 short in what I was expecting to pay out in 2022. It was all in the reserves, but it's come through in 2023. So the bulk of that increase in property costs is money spent as a result of the quinquennial. The rest of all that increase actually is higher maintenance expenditures, gone up by 9,400 last year. We had quite a lot of money spent on it. But the bulk of it is that money from the quinquennial. Church running costs. This is all sorts of tiny little things. Whether it's flags, whether it's bread for communion, whether it's wine for communion, whether it's candles, everything seems to have gone up. Probably inflationary increases, perhaps some we're spending more. The main increase in church running expenses is actually the verger. I'm sorry to talk about you, Darren, but I'm going to... we rent vestry cottages, I'm sure you all know from Minch Parish Council. They jacked the rent up from the 1st of January last year by £900 a year. That goes through that line. Darren also, we pay him the minimum wage, had about a £700 pay rise last year. So the two together come to about £1,600 increase in verger's costs. The organist had an £800 rise or thereabouts. So there are some increases in there, but lots of other little things. Admin costs have gone up by about £5,000. You may recall that at the start of 2022, Christine Gibson was the parish secretary. She left, I can't remember when, but we then had about a 3-month break in a paid secretary. And Caroline and Angie stood in nobly and did all the secretarial work as church wardens, as they should do. So we made a big saving in 2022. In 2023, we've paid Vicky the whole year. So you're comparing one which is only got about 9 months of the administrator's salary in, to one with 12 months. There's lots of other costs in there, that's just not their salary, don't think that please, but the increase is primarily the administrator's full year salary. And transfers, well, they're just transfers from one account to another. So, can we have the next one, Howard? Which shows that in 2023, we actually made a small deficit of just over £1,000 compared to 6,800 surplus in 2022. Now, that surplus was due to the delayed expenditure from the quinquennial. It wasn't a particularly good year. a lot of that money should have been in 2023. A lot of that expense, which was in 2023, should be in 2022. So we shouldn't worry about that too much, I don't think. So general funds are in a pretty good nick, really, if we could go on. So what sort of good nick are they in? Well, at the end of 2023, they're actually £30,441, which sounds a huge amount of money. But if you try to apply the Archbishop's Council rules on what a PCC like this should have in its general funds, it should actually be 30,123. So we're just marginally above the level laid down by the Archbishop's Council, which I think is pretty good, actually. You know, so these are big numbers, but they're in line with what the Archbishops in 2016, I think it was, laid down. Hello, Peter.
If you had a bill in for £5,000, the actual reserve would go down to 25,000.
That would be correct.
But that breaks the 30,123 limit.
Sorry, would that?
That breaks the Archbishop's Council.
Yes, it would. It would.
Is that a concern? Or is there any concern?
Sorry, it might be better if you spoke into this one, because I can do it.
We're supposed to have 30,123 on the Archbishop's Council's rules. Won't comment upon the Archbishop's Council's being able to do that. But we have 30,441. If we would have a bill for 5,000, we're suddenly under the Archbishop's Council's figure. I mean, what sort of control is there that we don't go under it?
Me. No, the PCC has to decide what it can pay and what it can't. I mean, unfortunately, in our case, the balancing figure tends to be the parish share. Rightly or wrongly, but that's what it is. Which is why it's important we paid what we paid this year, and I'll go into that in a minute.
Can I just say that they're not actually rules, they're guidelines. So it's down to our PCC to apply what they think is appropriate. And thus far, we have thought appropriate what the guidelines are. So we've made sure at the end of each financial year we have that minimum guidelines amount ready for the next year. If that's helpful.
But personally, I would like to maintain them above the Archbishop's Council, because I don't want to be sitting here saying, I can't pay you this month.
No.
I really do not. So I want to try to aim to be there or thereabouts. I don't know why I put this last number in. At the end of 22, we had 32,896. And the next one, Howard. Right, parish share. The amount of parish share we've been paying year on year has been dropping over time inexorably. 15 years ago, I guess it was, we were paying about 90,000 a year. Way over what we were asked to pay, but we paid it because we could. In 2020, we actually paid 64,000. In 2021, we were paid 59,000. In 2022, we were asked, the way the diocese works these things out, is we and Amberley were asked to pay 114,000 in the year. We usually pay 2/3 of that bill, so we were meant to be paying something like 77,000. We actually managed in 22 to pay 47,000, so we're about 30 grand below what we were being asked, which is a big shortfall. In 2023, they asked for the same number, asked for 117,000. But then suddenly, in October last year, we had an email that said, oh, we only want you to pay 47,537, which is the same number as the sum that we'd paid in 2022. I'm sure that was the way it was set up. So we have actually, according to the latest figures, paid what we were required to pay in 2023, which is great, but it's a lot less than we were originally asked to pay. Why it came down, I guess they must have felt sorry for us, or perhaps they had some money from somewhere, I don't know. But we paid what we were actually asked to pay in 2023. In 2024, they're back to increasing it again, so we're asked to pay 50,865, which is an increase of about 7% from 2023. And in the budget the PCC has agreed, we've only got in to pay 38, because that's all I think we thought we could pay at the time we were preparing the budget. So it looks to me as if in 2024, and I'll come on and talk about that in a bit more detail later, we will be underpaying by about 12,000 at least, 12,865. All right. Now, there are many funds other than general funds. There's the designated and there's the restricted. And I want to talk about three in particular. One is fabric, one is 6Ps, and one is the money we've been giving to charity. Fabric fund, some of it is designated, some of it is restricted. We put £5,000 into our designated fabric fund every year. So in 2022, £5,000 went in. In 2023, £5,000 went in. And at the end of 23, we had £10,000 in our designated fabric fund. In our restricted fabric fund, we've suddenly got £2,000. One or two people have started switching from giving money in their monthly plan giving to general funds and are giving to restricted fabric funds, and that's what that £2,000 is. So at the end of the year, we've got £12,000. And if we go on to the next one, this is the 6Ps. Now, all that you see here is part of the 6Ps. Remember? Preserving the past, protecting the present, planning for posterity, the 6Ps. I hope you all remember that. And we've obviously done all this work, paid for everything you can see. The organ is estimated to cost $232,000. At the end of 2023, we actually had $232,000. A staggering achievement, I think. Really amazing. Coming from all sorts of places, whether it's Janet and her breakfasts, or Hilary with her yoga, or lots and lots and lots of grants, or various other things we've got there. And the windows, David has estimated that the cost of the windows will be $150,000. At the end of 2023, we had $31,000 in the bank account. And that's going up quite well, because we're doing little things like the auction of Art in the Attic, that's what it's called, isn't it? Art in the Attic on Saturday. Previously, we'd had the Promises auction. Those two together have generated over $5,000. Various grants are coming in towards it. So that number is increasing quite dramatically. It's going up, it's nearly up to 50,000 at the end of March, in fact. So, going well. We're good at raising money for property costs, shall I say. Can I try the next one? Oh no, I don't want to do this one yet. I want to talk about charitable giving first. You'll see from the accounts we've taken in nearly £7,000 in the year as restricted charity collections. I haven't done a listing of them. They are all in the accounts. You can see where they are. I think it's in... Note. Note 7 on page 13. And you'll see that we've given away £6,972. A lot of money. Now, the bulk of that is going to Masasi-related things, and I have to pay tribute here to Steve and Linda for all their hard work in raising funds for Masasi. You know, the Friday lunches, all the various things they do. It's great, and I think we as a church are very proud of them. I'm very proud to be able to give away £6,972 in a year. This really is very good. They're not here, unfortunately. Yes. Right, onwards, Howard, please. So, a little summary of 2023. Our planned giving actually rose, in spite of the death of some very significant givers. Our fees and rent and concert income increased by £6,000. We paid the parish share, which was eventually the number requested, which is great. Our property costs rose by 9,000, principally due to the quinquennial. Church running costs went up by £5,500. Lots of things, but the version and the organist were two of them. Admin went up because we paid an administrator for the full year. We completed the fundraising for the organ. Amazing. We made a pretty good start on fundraising for the windows. We comply with the Archbishop's Council regulations, I think perhaps it's not the right word. Guidelines on general reserves. So, as a treasurer, I think I can conclude that financially, 2023 was a pretty good year for Minchinhampton with Box PCC. And I'm delighted to be able to say that, actually. But, there's a big but coming up. 2024 is different. As you'll see from the other section of reports, stewardship in 2023, we were expecting 109,000. For 2024, we're only expecting 96. Huge reduction, huge reduction. Concerts. In the first 3 months of 2023, we received £3,700. Now, I have to say, £2,000 of that was from an Irish choir, some of you may remember, called, I've put Resurgam up there so I can remember the name, which wasn't repeated. But our income from concerts in the first 3 months of this year is down to 1,098. So it's going wrong, going south, when I didn't want it to be, didn't expect it to be either, which is very bad news. Repairs. In the first 3 months, we spent 2,387. We budgeted 12 grand for the whole year, so we're under the run rate at the end of March. But we now have a leak in the North Aisle up there. The rain that's falling on the roof is too much for the drain pipes. It's coming down onto that roof. It's coming under the tiles. There's a leak up there now. The South Aisle, there's a valley that leads from up there up to the tower. It's suddenly leaking. It's going to cost £3,400 to repair. Nick Miles, when he was on the roof looking at that, discovered lead all the way along there. Needs replacing. I don't understand why, I'm not technical like that. 10 grand he rings. Emergency lighting. These lights up in the corners up here. These come on when the power goes off. They've been installed for a long time. The batteries are no longer recharging. If the lights went off, we'd probably be in the darkness. We need to do something about that. I don't know what the cost is. Electricity and gas. We've been on a hugely beneficial contract for 3 years up until December 23. We were very lucky. We probably had the cheapest rate you could possibly get. Thanks to Mr. Putin and one or two other things, gas and electricity prices have gone up. So we signed some more contracts just for 2 years this time, but they are significantly higher than the old ones, 11 grand a year higher. Compared to what you'd have to pay today if you're going out on the spot market, whatever the right word is, we've got a good deal again this year, but it's significantly higher than before. So this year, we're looking at, in the first line, 13,000. In the second line, I don't know what it might be. It might be down by 5 grand on concerts if we're not careful. We've got 17,000 at least probably in repairs, 11,000 on gas and electricity. Huge numbers. Now, some of that is included in the budget that the PCC approved. The very top line, the stewardship line, we knew that was going to happen. So it's in the 2024 budget. Electricity and gas, 11,000. We knew it was going to happen. So again, it's in the budget. And the budget we've prepared just about breaks even. We didn't realise the concerts were going to drop so much. We didn't realise the repair bill was going to go up so much, I'm afraid. So there's going to be some serious talk about what we do about those. We have got some fabric reserves, as we looked at just now. We've certainly got nothing to reserve for concerts or anything like that. So these are a bit serious, some of these things we're talking about. I think 2024 will be a very serious year for us. So, while 2023, we all deserve a clap on the back, I do believe. 2024, I'm afraid, it's going to be a little different.
Would it be possible to consolidate costs by using a single company for repairs?
Sorry?
Would it be possible? I'm assuming there are more than one supplier to act the repairs. Would it be possible to consolidate the cost with a single company?
All the repair work is now done by Nick Miles, for example. All the electrical work is done by AJ Smith. AJ Smith. So we're down to two who are really our preferred contractors. We go out for competitive quotes occasionally, not all the time. It's a lot of work going out for a quote, I tell you. The church wardens have to work very, very hard to get a quote. So we go out for some, but we usually find that Nick Miles or AJ Smith or whoever we got are the ones which are A, are the cheapest, and B, know us well and are the most reliable.
Some of which is our sort of preferred contractors know the building, know where things are hidden and how it works. We had an electrician in temporarily a year or two ago. He just kind of threw his hands up in horror and said, well, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So something for that.
Do you know the threshold for getting quotes?
Well, we never get a quote for anything under 500 quid. If there's something which someone's been working on or knows an awful lot about, we won't get a quote probably. But I don't know what percentage times we get competitive quotes. It wouldn't be. Oh.
So the question is really about using a preferred contractor versus going out to get competitive quotes and tenders. And is there a limit for how big a contract should be before we then go out for quotes again? Do you want to talk to that?
Yes, I'm just trying to think. I don't think that there is any sort of written procedure or anything that I'm aware of, but we do tend to go for normally the best of three quotes. Except in situations, as John was talking about just now, where we're actually using Nick Miles for the building works, and at the moment AJ Smith for the lighting, and that will be sort of reviewable, I suppose. We said after 3 years we'd have another look, but we went out to tender then for when we did all the electrical work. We had 3 tenders in, and AJ Lighting were the ones that we chose. So, yes, we do. We normally do tender.
Thank you.
Do we still have to replace lead with lead?
No, is the answer.
A lot of our lead is slowly being replaced by stainless steel, John.
Which is less stealable.
Which is less stealable and usually cheaper.
So that quote up there is based on another alternative metal, is it?
I believe it is, yes.
Yeah.
John, are any of those costs covered by insurance when the lead is stolen?
No, that's not stolen. None of that is stolen. That's just wear and tear, I'm afraid.
Do you want me to say something?
Yeah.
Just quickly, the question of lead and steel, we went into that in detail with the architect and with the diocese through the DAC a couple of years ago when we first had lead stolen from the porch room roof, and we gained permission for actually using the stainless steel, turn-coated stainless steel. Did the same thing here. We negotiated that quite early on in the faculty, in the licence for the replacement of the stolen lead with steel. Over here, this is the issue here is a different one. It's the fact that that the lead is now in the gutter in the parapet is old and it's beginning to wear. It's a very long length of lead, much longer than would be specified now. And the architect has flagged it up, and so has Nick Miles. It's not actually leaking at the moment, but it's liable to bubble and wrinkle and liable then to crack, and that's when the water will come through and the real trouble will start there. So we are trying to preempt any problem, and we will certainly, Nick and the architect Anthony are going up to have a look when the valley is being repaired, and they will specify what's needed, and any faculty that goes through, it will need a full faculty, that repair, we'll be asking to replace that, not with lead, but with steel again. So that's it really.
We'll wait for the price of lead to go up. Installed stuff.
If you're replacing the lead with stainless steel, are you going to sell the lead?
I presume we are. Presumably they get sold. The lead that will come off the buildings presumably then sold to reduce the bill. Yeah, sure it is. It's too valuable to just put it in a skip.
Yeah, it's more valuable for the builders, so you've got to make sure you get it back.
Yes, yeah. Well, yes, it should be. Yeah. As and when we can afford it. Any other questions for John?
Which I ought to tell you, I think. The lead that was stolen up there, we replaced it with stainless steel, and we put some beams all the way along up there. Electrical beams, so anyone getting on the roof with triggers an alarm. I think it was Easter Saturday, the alarm went off, and you came round and had a look. And a long ladder was discovered lying on the graveyard back there. Because someone had obviously been up there, scarpered, and left their ladder.
Yeah, so it was well worth us installing
So it was really
our
worthwhile.
laser alarm up there to trigger when people stealing lead. I think all that lead would have gone that side by now otherwise. Any other questions for John on finances? Yep.
Most of my questions have been answered. I have two comments. Presumably on page 4, where the organ is going to be back in use by early 2024, you mean late? Page 4.
It is going to be late 2024.
Well, it says-
might push into 2025, I think.
It says early. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Just showing I read it carefully. The other thing that show I read it carefully is that the accounts refer to under the sort of the notes, they refer to note 15. There isn't a note 15. Neither is there. It refers to under wedding funeral fees. See note 15. We haven't got a page 16. They finish at 15. Wow. We didn't have that one.
We shall circulate that as soon as we can. Would you like to read us what that note is?
Well, it talks about fees.
There's a lot of it, is there? It's a very long note. We'll have it out by Sunday.
I'm sorry about that.
No. I've got one more question, and I'm asking this on behalf of Sandy Ubery. She says she couldn't find any reference in the accounts to income from the hub. A couple of years ago, we were told that the hub would produce an income. It doesn't appear to be. And can you confirm that we're not actually subsidising the hub in any way?
Shall I talk to her? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, For those, I suspect most of you are aware, but some of you may not be aware that the community hub is run by a charity called Site for a Church Hall, which had a long and very complicated history, and was until a few years ago run by Minchinhampton Youth Club until they folded and handed the property back to the landlords, which is a charity called Site for a Church Hall, which is a charity completely independent of this church, but has, broadly speaking, aligned aims and goals as this church. So as and when we can, as a charity, raise an income from that site, reasonable that this church sees income from that site. The trustees are the rector and 2 church wardens, and we have since taking on control of that site been trying to negotiate a lease with an organisation to run the site and pay us rent. And I can say that process has been the most irritating and frustrating and frankly quite upsetting at times task I've ever undertaken in all my years of ministry. And I think this might be my 3rd annual meeting in a row saying we have a deal on the table and we'll be signing it relatively soon. And I hate to say it again because it's not been forthcoming the last 2 years, but it does feel like we are getting close to sign an agreement such there will be a quite significant income initially and building to a significant income in due course, which, looking at our 2024 projected figures, could be vital. I am expecting by the end of the week for the potential tenant organisation, form a business plan, which is all we still need from them. The solicitors, who have been unbelievably slow and difficult to work with, finally got back to me yesterday, I think it was, literally 3-4 months after I asked some questions about what kind of lease and the details for the lease. So we are potentially on the verge of that, and I'm rather hoping as of our next meeting, which is on Monday, I think, we will be asking the solicitors to draw up contracts. So we're closer than we have ever been, but we typically make about a week's progress every year on this. So I will be staggered if I'm not standing up here next year if there isn't something on the balance sheet already come in from that organisation. We do get added benefit from that site while we are running it. Not least, we're involved in various outreach projects. Our church is known for the work we're doing outreaching to the community on that site, which is really valuable. A number of families have said to fellow organisers, I don't send my children to the hub anymore because it's run by the church. And there's been a real unfortunate feeling amongst people in the community against not just this church, but church in general. And so the people we work with have been able to say, actually, you know Howard, you know Tracy, you know Coral, they're not judgmental people. They're not going to shout at you, they're not going to brainwash your children. So we've done a lot of work with our community on that site. So it's huge added value for our church. I have to say there's a significant cost to our church in terms of my time, clergy time, not just running the charity, but being involved in the youth club on site. I was delighted to be thanked at the annual town council meeting yesterday for my and our work with youth on that site, which was really good. And we are trying to work more and more with that side of things. So we've been trying to pull the rabbit out of the hat to keep community work going on, to keep youth work going on there, to make sure that the church gets mileage out of that site, the church is connecting with our community on that site, but also to get an income for the church off that site. And fingers crossed, we might maybe be getting there soon. And there was a second element to that question, which was just say the church is not subsidising that charity, and it's in fact illegal for a charity to subsidise another charity. So we'd be on very sketchy ground if the church subsidised that. Having said that, there are certain legal vulnerabilities we have at the moment as trustees, so the sooner we can sign a lease, the better, and then it's all someone else's liability. And the organisation called Minchinhampton Community Hub will take on all those liabilities, and we will breathe a sigh of relief. So that was a very long answer to that question. Anything else on Minchinhampton Community Hub and all of that? Yes? No? No. Any other questions for John about the finances?
Mine relates to parish share. So, I mean, we've not paid our parish share for a number of years, as I recall completely. It's the original amount. Last year we were given a reduced amount which we paid. How is it viewed insofar as, I know we have a lot of restricted funds for the 6Ps and things. Is fundraising for a specific, say, the organ or windows, does that automatically fall into restricted funds? Right. How is it viewed by the diocese that a church who spends so much money on the fabric of the church, which are nice to have things, generally speaking, notwithstanding holes in windows and things that need to be repaired, how is it viewed that we don't pay a parish, we have lots of money to pay for nice things?
I don't know is the answer to that, but I do know that if we hadn't spent a lot of money reordering this place, the repairs on this place would have been absolutely enormous. So much has been put right here. We're running on very restricted, very low repairs and maintenance costs today because of the 6Ps, the work that's been done, putting so many things right. So, while I don't know what they think...
That's something you would justify. The question, the answer is that it's been justified.
So I think I could add...
If you look at a church, look at a church that spends a lot of money on fabric, we don't pay parish share. Margaret's probably the best one for an answer.
Yep, I'll pick up after you.
Thank you. This is with my deanery responsibility hat on, because through that we get a view across the diocese of what the position is in terms of financing ministry. That is what the parish share is for. It is for our ministry. And you're quite right to raise it. I don't know what the diocese exactly thinks about it, but I do know that for some parishes, looking at us, we appear to have clergy coming out of our ears, relatively speaking. And while we don't pay for the curates, on the other hand, we have a full-time rector. We have 2 curates at the moment. And they would, you know, if they saw our parish share figures, they might be quite interested in that. However, I think what Bishop Rachel would say is that she looks to people to be as generous as they are able to be to meet the costs of ministry across the diocese. Don't only think about your own patch, but people who may be in even worse and more problematic circumstances than us. And her saying also was, it's all very well keeping money for a rainy day, but actually as a diocese, it's raining. And we've been running a deficit for some time. There's going to be a review, there is a review underway this year of how parish share is managed, requested, and so on. If you, you were on PCC at one time, but you will have heard me banging on about this before, and probably tediously for the rest of the PCC, particularly for the Treasurer. I bang on about it regularly because I think it is very problematic. And as John said, we're very good at raising money for particular projects, but people don't feel apparently that they can do both. So our parish share giving doesn't get increased when people are busy contributing to other things, is how I understand it works here. But it is something which should be on all our hearts, put it that way. And Howard may like to say something about the parish share.
Yeah. Thank you. So we have kind of seen this coming. Every year, John and I have a conversation to say it'll be next year that the freight train hits us and the financial wheels fall off. And every year I have a conversation with the Archdeacon and I say, we're in trouble, we're not going to make it this year. And we've been pretty close most years for the last few years. It does really feel like 2024 is the year that actually it is going to hit. And I have to say, other parishes have gone before us in this, and there are a really significant number of parishes running massive deficits, contributing to a big diocesan deficit each year. And clearly, the diocese can't go on subsidising parish churches forever. The subsidy rate is massive at the moment. I did a rough calculation last year. I don't know if there's anyone here right, but I thought very roughly the diocese had about 5 years left before the money ran out. So the diocese has thus far been actually quite keen, talking to the Archdeacon, to invest in our parish for a whole host of reasons. And the church, the diocese, think we have a bright future, and we're doing lots of things to invest in our future. Our age profile is quite desirable compared with most Church of England churches in the diocese, and we're engaged in all kinds of exciting projects to bring in the kingdom of God in a bright way. So thus far, the diocese has been not very pleased, but has been content to invest in our being a little behind each year. So, on the one hand, the diocese have been very supportive. I don't see that stopping soon. But on the other hand, it will have to stop soon because the money will just simply run out. So we've got some real head scratching to do over the next year. So, yeah.
Just one thing to say, if for those of you who came to Art in the Attic on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, you will know that most of the money that was spent at that event was from non-church people. It's much easier to raise funds for restricted funds, which are not for running the church, because other people come and contribute. It's not just us. And we must remember that we're very lucky in this place because we're in a fairly wealthy community who are happy to spend money on restricted things for their church, but not necessarily happy to give money towards the general funds, which might go towards parish share, dare I say.
And just because there's one more thing to add, Avening and Cherrington are moving into this benefice, which will have an effect on parish shares. And we'll have to do some more negotiating because we will end up with a single figure from the diocese which covers the whole benefice, and then we need to work out who should pay what. And I'm anticipating that Avening and Cherrington should contribute to the part of our parish share that relates to me, because of the time I spend with them, and I will spend managing the new associate priest, Natalie. So put that together with the new parish share calculation, who knows where we'll be. It's very difficult to say. Hopefully by next year we'll have a good idea of where that's all looking.
Good.
Any more questions?
I think that completes finance, hopefully.
In which case you need to appoint auditors.
Oh, well spotted, yes. The auditors are someone called GCSD, who are a firm based in Stonehouse, a firm of chartered accountants. And they do the audit fairly cheaply. They just about cover their insurance costs for doing this audit. That's all they charge us, basically. So, because they're cheap, sounds a lot of money, but they are cheap, I can assure you. I would like to suggest that I'd like to propose that they are reappointed to do next year's independent examination as well. But I need a seconder, please. And anyone anti that, or everyone in favour? Perhaps we should sort of, anyone
All those in favour? Lots of hands. I think that's everyone. Abstentions? No. Anyone against? That was unanimous. Who was proposing and seconding?
I was. Peter.
Great, good. Thank you.
What was the name again, please, John?
GCSD.
GCSD. Great. Okay. So I think that takes us on to... Oh, sorry, Peter. Absolutely. Give a round of applause for John. And heartfelt thanks from me. I've only been here for a quarter of John's time as treasurer to this parish, but I will be here for the final year John is treasurer to this parish, which is this year. So we're really keenly looking for someone to take on treasurer from John and learn the ropes from John this year. John has everything laid out in spreadsheets, so it should be a relatively straightforward post, and John will be very keen to give you great training and support to make that work. So please do consider if you will be the person who will be appointing as honorary treasurer next year at this meeting. And no, it will be before that, won't it? Because you're going to see out 2024. So we'll need to appoint a new honorary treasurer before the end of this calendar year. No. So have a think about whether you could do it, or if there's someone you know who could do it. They don't have to be a member of this church, as long as they can get their head around the numbers and help us understand the numbers. That's what we're looking for. Potentially could pull that role into different bits. We could have someone who's a bookkeeper separate from someone who advises the PCC, for example. So have a think about that. Really key and important role for our organisation, not least looking to the future. Thank you, Peter. In which case, that takes us on to the reports. So we receive those reports, which you should have all of. And we could take at this point any questions you have relating to the reports you have there, if you have any. Reports from PCC and church committees and organisations and all of that. Thank you. So we received those reports. And before I make some closing comments, time for any other business. Any other thoughts, questions, suggestions you would like me, the PCC, Deanery Synod to note or answer? Yes.
Thank you very much. It's about Children's Church, and I mentioned it at the end of the short report. We are in the porch room with children individually. And although we have done safeguarding training, etc., we really should have a second person in the room. If one of the children wants to go, you know, sometimes in the summer we go outside, and you can imagine what that's like. If there are people that are prepared to come and not have to do things, but be there as a second adult, it would be hugely helpful.
It's a really important piece of work your team do, not least for the children who come, but also actually for the families who just come on spec and, oh, you have Sunday school? Yes. Fabulous. And this Sunday, there should be some extras.
We have that exactly on Sunday, when a dad brought out two little ones. One was 2 years old. So we've got 2 years old and upper. But they had a whale of a time. But it took me time away from the others to talk to him and to encourage. So fingers crossed.
So a huge thank you, but we've tried a couple of different organisational tacks to try and make this work, and it's not still worked. So we really need people. It wouldn't be to do it terribly often, but just to come and be in the room and share would be wonderful. Which means, you know, if someone's got to pop out to the toilet or do something, there's a second person there. Don't have to have a huge amount of training or knowledge. You don't have to write stuff. Just be there. Yeah, thank you. Anything else?
Just a general point. When's the churchyard next being mown?
Oh, don't know when the churchyard's next being mown.
It was mowed a bit yesterday.
Yeah.
Steve mowed.
Can you say a bit more about your question? What do you mean by that question?
Because if you're arriving from the front, it just looks untidy. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the ecological and environmental, but if you're coming into a church, you're expecting it to
Sure.
present.
Yeah. So I think particularly the back of what you're saying, good to try and keep front of house looking maybe a little bit neater and tidy, even if the back garden is a bit more. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Noted. We'll pass that on to the team.
I think there's a kind of a mixed feeling. Some
There
people
is.
feel that it looks great. Sorry. Some people feel that it looks great with the wildflowers and the pathways cut through it, and then other people like yourself think it looks better when it's nicely kempt. But I think it's more in line, isn't it? Sorry, Jenny and Gerald, to drag you in, but isn't it part of a plan with the churchyard?
Do you want to say something about the plan?
Did you want to say?
Yes, there is a very well-defined management plan for the churchyard, which was written about 18 months ago, and which we kept to pretty well last year, and it's pretty similar this year as well. And I know last year we did put it in the magazine and publicised it on a notice board here. I don't think this year's version has done that yet, but we must do that. And it is constructed so as to try and get a balance between good looks and the environment. And I agree with you that the area at the front here, on the plan, is supposed to be kept short all the time. And needless to say, we're always on the lookout for volunteers to help with that task.
Thank you. In fact, there was a volunteer last week doing some of that work, I noticed. Yeah, thank you, though. Right, in which case, closing comments before we conclude our business. Principally, I'd like to do so a thank you and a sorry and a please, which I think is a really good approach to prayer in general, but also maybe these occasions as well. So I think I, more than most clergy, rely massively on my team. Various reasons for that. But it's a huge thank you to all of those who keep the wheels turning on my ministry wagon, on our ministry wagon. Actually, Vicky, we talked about earlier, who keeps us all organised. The church wardens, who there's always a headache on the go. No, usually 3 headaches on the go at any point in time. Everyone has an opinion on the matter, and our church wardens are not experts. And there's a huge amount of work our church wardens have been doing and will continue to do. It's a church which isn't just an old building that needs lots of looking after. The programme we've had working on the floor and the heating and everything else, it needs tinker with, needs getting right. The projects with 6Ps, that all has an impact on what we are doing. So huge amount of work they do. And a thank you to, really, think everybody here, and loads of people who aren't, who do lots of work to keep this church running in the best way it can. In particular, I know that fundraising and hospitality have done a lot of work this year, and I think might be struggling for energy, it might be fair to say, to keep that rolling. So a huge thank you to everybody for the work you do. And some of you might feel like you're not noticed. I hope that I notice, and if I haven't thanked you, I'm thanking you now. Also last year I mentioned a thank you to our retired clergy who's doing a lot of work covering Avery and Cherrington, so it was a great relief. We finally appointed someone, and Natalie will be joining us 16th of July, and I think she will be the most wonderful, amazing person. How her work teases out and where she spends her time and doing what, and how much she and I float to do our specialist best things everywhere, or how much we are located firmly in the parishes for which we are locally responsible, remains to be seen. We'll see how that quite works out. But I'm sure that the church, the retired clergy, are looking forward to having a little bit of a break from taking lots of services around the benefice with Avery and Cherrington for literally years. As wonderful as they are. And they're wonderful people and wonderful churches, and really good to have them on board with us. In terms of sorry, my apologies personally for the ways in which I don't manage to keep all the plates spinning at the same time. I know lots of you have worked out that I don't do detail well, and if it's not exciting, I've probably forgotten it. So thank you for chasing me appropriately and not getting too grumpy when things don't get done. I'm delighted for you, anybody, to chase me and suggest, I don't know, Mrs. Coggins, you've not been to see, you should go and see her. That would be really helpful, both for her and me, for example. And so do chase me into that kind of a thing. And we've already talked about it, but another example I was going to say, the work on the hub, I'm sorry it's taken so many years to get this straight. I'm not the best person for the job, but I am, by way of my role as a rector, the person to do that job. And part of what we're trying to achieve there is to get it right for the next 30, 40 years. So actually, relatively small questions take on massive proportions when you start looking into the future. And by way of please, I'm going to say, please continue trying to be the best disciple you can be and help this church to be the best church it can be. Continue to spend a lot of our resources and energy connecting with our community, connecting with people who are in particular kinds of need, vital work. We continue to try and work through ways in which we can invite them to join our church family and support what we do here mutually. And then all of us need to be welcoming when people come and check us out, and make sure we are super welcoming and super forgiving when they don't quite get what's going on or whatever. So there's something there for all of us. I think we've done quite a lot of PCC vision work, and there will be more to do. We are not a church with a strategy. I hope we are a church which is strategic, and stuff changes all the time. I like to think we are moving in a positive direction in lots of different ways, being more of the wonderful church we could be. And hopefully we'll continue to walk in that direction for many, many years to come. and I enjoy sharing that journey with you. I think that's all I have to say. I've sat here for long enough. We have some dates on the end, so for those new PCC members, we will be commissioning on Sunday 5th May at the 10 o'clock service. First meeting will be Tuesday 21st May at 7:30 p.m. If you haven't written those down in time, do grab us afterwards. Next year's meeting is to be confirmed. So I wonder if we might close by saying the grace together. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. So I think we're looking to the future and looking from the past. So please do pray about the future. There's a real challenge ahead. But for now, there's amazingly wonderful, beautiful things going on all the time. I think we should all give ourselves a big round of applause. Thank you. Do stay for refreshments, and thank you for the PCC who've organised our refreshments.